Tony Wu, welcome to Future Proof.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Now, you are doing some amazing work with WePloy. Talk to us first of all about what you're observing in the context of how the way we work is shifting.
Yeah, I mean, the future of work is something that everyone talks about. We go to organizations and everyone is trying to future-proof or trying to understand what is going on. You hear a lot of things about technology, you talk about you hear a lot about automation, AI, chatbots and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But I think in simple terms, what we're seeing is basically a shift from working hard to working smarter. And businesses are looking at how can they, look, stop biting my hand.
You've got a disruptive staff member.
Exactly. He's gonna have to go to the corner. But basically looking at how can they atomize their roles? How can they achieve more out of their staff? And how can they prepare for future roles that didn't exist before as well? You all right? All right, go.
Yeah, something to say.
He's just excited because I think he's been cooped up for the past couple of days. But yeah, atomization is a huge thing. And so a lot of people get a little bit scared about technology and what it's going to do because they think it's going to take over people's roles. It's going to take over, it's going to basically take over businesses, right? And so they look at basically how can they embrace this in a much more simpler way. So an example is, I talk a lot about enablement, right? Technology isn't there to just completely replace. Technology is there to enable, right? So when a business uses technology right, they're able to enable themselves to work more fearlessly, more empowered. And that's where when you use technology correctly, you can actually embrace a workforce to do more. So an example is this, right? I'll try to put it into more simple terms. I've got a bottle of kombucha here.
Yep.
I've drank a little bit, so it's I don't think you can see it properly, but the water level's to about here. Now, if I went and bought this, doesn't matter that it's $3. I buy this bottle, and if it came like this out of off the shelf, I'd feel ripped off because there's so much, I guess, missing, right? Now, that's $3, and you feel ripped off, right? For me, I do, if that happened. So you've got businesses out there that basically go and get someone on $100,000 salary. Then the worker comes in, and that's how much value they're getting, right? So they might be, overspending $30,000, $20,000, $40,000, whatever it be, because the other amount is just spent on low. Watch out for the cable. Brooklyn, go. You're looking at basically how can they. So I was saying basically they spend $100,000, they get the person in, but the person doesn't spend 100% of their time on high value, high impact work.
No.
So how do you atomize their role? How do you look at basically how can we get that? So when you buy this bottle or you hire this staff member, 100% of this is high value. So you're buying 100% kombucha, not 70% kombucha, 30% air, right? So that's when we talk about technology. How can technology help to atomize, enable, and empower so that when you're getting it, your staff member are now spending 100% on the stuff that they should be doing. So an example of that is even our workplace, our onboarding team currently, used to spend 80% of their time onboarding, 20% of their time on admin in between, because we've had to build up this process. We haven't been able to automate it from day one. You do an MVP, you look at what needs to be automated, and you continue to automate. Now we're able to shift them to work more on a 60-40 split, and we want to get to, so right now it's basically 60% on onboarding, 40% on projects and high value, or not high value but projects, and these projects they're working on are real business problems, stuff that can allow us to scale internationally. They're looking at stuff that no other business is potentially even looking at. Now, these people, traditional, a year ago was working in almost a full-time admin role. Now they're solving real-life business challenges, and it's not because they've learned anything new. It's just they've been held back because they haven't been empowered or enabled, right?
Yep.
So, and where we want to get to is basically, let's say they spend 40% of the time onboarding, 60% of the time on pure project work. And where I might have a massive business problem, and together we can solve these problems quicker. There's this quote we kind of talk about, and it's I can't remember who said it. It's definitely not us, but it's not the big fish that eats the slow fish. It's the fast fish that eat. No, sorry, it's not the big fish that eats the small fish. It's the slow fish that eats. It's the fast fish that eats the slow fish. Sorry, that was a bit of a mouthful. But I heard it the other day. That's why it's still quite fresh in
Fresh in
my
mind.
yeah. And it's true because you look at businesses like your Ubers, like your Netflix, like your Airbnbs, where they've gone into an industry where they've been traditional. Taxi industry is huge, the hotel industry is huge, the Netflix, blockbusters in the video industry has been huge, and they've been able to disrupt these large businesses
Yeah, off the back of nothing. Do you know what I
because
mean?
they move
Yeah.
fast, right? And so that's where we're talking about, I guess, from the future of work. And when we're talking to these businesses, a lot of these large business corporates are going, how can we move fast again to take on or compete with these fast growing businesses? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So talk to us. You guys are disrupting recruitment in a big way. So
Yeah.
talk to us about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, I mean, the why we're doing it is our goal is to create a fearless and empowered future of work,
Yeah.
whereby people can work to live. So, I guess an example, my story is that my passion in life was jiu-jitsu, or still is jiu-jitsu. I went to the World Championships, competed twice, and I lost twice. And when I look back on it, there's a lot of reasons that I could put, of why, but one of the biggest things was that I was scared. And when I say I was scared, it was that my competitors and the people that were training at that level, they were working, gave up their life to work on that full time. That was their job,
yeah.
right? Whereas I was too scared to give up my day job because of a salary and that sort of stuff. So I was trying to squeeze in training here and there, right? But I wasn't giving it the dedication that it deserved, and that's where we talk about working to live rather than living to work. So what we wanted to create was a system that allowed people to feel empowered and be fearless, and to be able to, like, using this scenario, imagine I wanted to be a world champion, and I needed to train in LA. Our goal is that, so for example, someone can go, you know what, I want to do this. I go to LA, I jump on a plane, I come off LA, and I start training and pursuing my dream. But everyone needs money. Money needs to, fund, needs you for food, for accommodation, all those sort of things. But rather than worrying and going, I need to go and commit myself to a 9 to 5 job every single day, and start, get into this kind of gridlock. I'm able to go pursue my dream, and then go, you know what, I'm running a bit low on funds. What if I just turn on my app, work a few jobs, up my get my bank up to a point again, and then be able to stop and then continue doing what I need to do. And that's the whole work to live element. So what we created was a platform that allows businesses to hire short-term staff that have all been pre-vetted, pre-interviewed, and very high quality, on demand. And when we say on demand in its truest sense, the average time at the moment is around 11 seconds for a job to be filled. So
11 seconds
yeah,
for a job to be filled.
Yeah, so the first one in 2018 was done in 1 second, but on average it's about 11 seconds,
Wow.
which is crazy. And so that's where when we built this platform, we asked ourselves, can we build something that is faster, more cost effective, and provides a higher and a consistently higher quality than what the traditional agencies can. And don't get me wrong, there's some amazing agencies out there. You've got some boutique ones that we've even worked with, and they do things really well because they are recruiters that go and work with the business, understand it's the human element, right? They
Yeah.
come in, they understand what's going on in the business, and they help us hire, high value roles. But when we're talking about, sort of volume type work, like your administrative staff, customer service staff, these sort of type roles, they don't necessarily always need, or especially in temp roles, they don't always need that high touch, high value. When I think back at the time that I was working in recruitment, and even my business partner owning his own recruitment business, we both agreed that majority of our work was just cold calling. It was literally just connecting one person to another person.
Yeah.
Business calls in, I have a need, I go through the database, find the person, go, do you want this job? Try to increase the margin, so I try to push down that person's rate and try to increase the client's budget, and then make the sale, right? So that's all it was. It wasn't about going in and going, how can I consult with your business and grow your business? When you're talking high value roles like, a director, a marketing manager, these sort of things, it's completely different. When we're not, what we're talking about is temp admin. And so when we saw that a majority of it could be automated and streamlined, we said, well, why don't we do it? Why don't we just disrupt the agencies? Because for too long they've been, holding these companies, essentially, charging them crazy amounts of money and putting them in a point where they use them because they have to, not because they want to. And then on the other side, I feel more importantly, the candidate side, they've been basically, not giving the people a fair go. They things like, being biased and like there's a whole plethora of things that come into that.
So talk to us. It's interesting because I worked at Shell for 16 years at executive level, and what I always found interesting was that often the best people would come through the back door. So these were the people that came in on short-term contracts, to help us out with a busy period. And what was unfortunate was they were guns in the job, but they were never good at writing CVs, or they weren't great at selling themselves in an interview. And what you're doing seems to have opened the door for these people to actually demonstrate their potential and removed a lot of unconscious bias. Correct. So talk about that for us.
Yeah, I mean, like in a traditional agency sense, or the big box agencies, it's about filling a round peg into a round hole. It's how can you build up your margin and your commission as fast as possible, get the person fit in. It's not always necessarily the right person, and it's not necessarily always, they don't necessarily always have the time to find the right person either. One of the big things is that, like, it's very hard to judge a person's ability on a piece of paper.
No.
Right. We went through some interviews with even like some of our staff, and we put them through, multiple rounds, because you've got to know that person. But when we're talking about someone temporary basis, someone that just comes in and needs to backfill or do a project-based work, do you really need to know that, right? So that becomes, I guess, less of a priority. It's more about speed and that sort of stuff. But I mean, I think probably a better way to explain it is I'll give you an example. There's a person on our books, or in our community, called Sania. She came in, and it's a funny story. We onboarded her when we were still building our business. We were working out of a bathroom, but anyways, and she is thinking back, it makes me laugh. But she came on board, and phenomenal girl, and joined the community. We had no issues with it, and everything seemed right. Like, because we put them through vetting through. We use data to vet them. So, for example, we'll put them through a test, and we'll look at the score of the test, and based on the score of the test, do we then allow them to come on?
Yep.
So they might do a data entry test. They do the data entry test, and then we look at the number that they score, and we go, yes, pass or fail, right? So it's purely data driven. She got through it all. She came onto the community, and she started working out in a few jobs. Then one day I needed something done here. So it was I needed a massive list to be cleaned on Excel, and I needed to slice and dice a little bit. So I estimated, for me, if I did it, it would take about 6 hours. So I pinged out a job for a 6-hour request. She was the other one. She was the first one to accept it. She came in and started working. I remember, like, I was on my desk, and about an hour and a half into the shift, she comes over to me and goes, "Hey Tony, I'm done. What else would you like me to do?" And I was like, "Nah." So I was like, "Hang on, let's look at your work. Like, let's see if this is accurate. And I looked at it, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, I thought the way that you were slicing it was probably not the most effective. So I've also sliced and diced it this other way for you, just so you have another view, right?" Yeah. And I was like, shit, this is amazing. So then I brought her into and I got to just do a whole bunch of other stuff. So in that 6 hours, I got like a month's worth of admin just done, right? I was like, wow, that was amazing. It was really cool for me because I got to experience,
what you're actually offering to people.
Correct. Because this was still early days, right? But what was important was this. Afterwards, I was like, all right, Sania, who are you? Tell me about yourself, right? And her story is pretty incredible. So she's come over from Kazakhstan, and she's studying her master's at the moment. And she's been looking for work for the past 6 months. And we're not talking like crazy work. We're talking data entry, administrative, just temp work. Yeah. Putting her CV into all the big box agencies and just trying her luck anywhere she can. And no one would call her back. No one would see her because she's well, I mean, we can only assume, but no one understands what Kazakhstani businesses are, because even you look at the CV and you see these words that these you can't pronounce. I struggle to pronounce it. I'll be completely honest. But that's the kind of stuff where like she wasn't getting any callbacks. But then when I spoke to her about her experience was basically she was a project manager, um, and the last project she was working was in a renewable energy business, and the project she was managing was a $1.5 billion project. So when we're talking spreadsheets, what I got her to do was super easy.
Yeah.
But for her, it's like she hasn't had the chance to show what she has been able to do, because they're just looking at her CV and saying no, no, no. And that's the kind of stuff where we're seeing all these people that have tremendous value and tremendous capability,
But haven't been given a chance.
haven't been given a chance. And what we're asking them to give a chance on is not to go, oh, give her a chance on project management work. It's to just say, hey, can you help run out, like do some admin for us, which is and a very important. I talk about high value roles and that sort of stuff. It is a very important role, because we all do it, and if we can outsource it, then it makes our lives so much easier. That has to be done. And the craziest part, the final part to it, is what's really amazing, and what we forget sometimes when we look at paper is we forget the human element to it, right? And when we were talking to her, she was like, look, I'm not working because I have to. She's like, I've got money, it's fine. I don't need a job. She's come over here. The reason why she wants to work is because she wants to experience a new culture. She wants to experience these new things, right? And for
probably meet people too.
it's a sense of purpose, right? And for her, it was more than a paycheck. By her getting a job and being able to come in and work, it allowed her to give her purpose, and more importantly, it allowed her to put doubt away, because she was like, for 6 months couldn't get a job, couldn't get work. She's like, what the hell? Am I not good enough, right? And so the fact that she was able to work on a spreadsheet, for her, it was like, it gave her a sense of purpose again. And that's what we're talking about. We sometimes forget about the essence of work. And that's where, how can we bring the essence of work back into people's lives, so that when they're working, they're actually loving what they do. Yeah.
So you're a gig economy guru, I would call you. Yeah. And you're also a millennial. Yeah. They say 75% of the workforce by 2025, so we're only talking 7 years, is going to be millennials. And I find that really interesting as someone who's in an older generation. When I hear a lot of people complaining about millennials, I think there's a huge opportunity. And I think one of the most valuable things I've ever done is actually gone out and sought reverse mentors in this space, because it's got so much value to add. So talk to us a little bit around advice that you would have for employers trying to attract and retain the talent of the future. What insights do you have in this space that may be helpful?
Yeah, I think the big thing with millennials at the moment is giving them flexibility, right? So it's not feeling like they have to work between 9 to 5. It's an element of, the thing is, I think there's always a misconception where it's like millennials, they don't want to work, they don't want to, do this sort of stuff. A lot of them actually want to work, and they're at the point they're the most connected, so they see what's happening around the world. So they actually have so much incredible creative ideas. What they want to do is have an opportunity to express, experiment, and showcase their ideas. So it's about I mean, the simple low-hanging fruit is flexibility. Like, for example, we've been sitting here, it's in the morning, but you've seen people come in at all different times of the morning. We don't have a set time of when someone comes in. They can leave when they want, they can come in when they want. But what happens is you find that they want to work. They're no longer, when you take away the boundaries of a clock,
People are more loyal, aren't they?
Right. So when you give them flexibility, it doesn't mean that you might have one or two outliers. You can't let the one or two outliers dictate the rest of the community, right? They might, slightly take the piss. There's the ones that you need to get rid of, and you might have to put a separate situation on, right? But for the majority, it's one of those things where when you give them empowerment and trust, they've been, it's their time, basically. Now is their time to show and showcase what they can. And when you give them that empowerment and trust, they go and try to achieve the most greatest thing that they can. Our business was built by a lot of millennials. I'm I guess somewhat of a millennial, but even we've got this person called Peter that was employee number one for us. complete millennial, and you know, when we go into this business, I can't say I've built a tech business like this before. And all of us, we've been in similar experiences, but none of us have uniquely done what we're doing now because it's never been done, right? So it's this thing where we're no longer drawing on previous experience, right? I mean, what you're doing is you're drawing on capability and the fearlessness to go and think logically and then go, yes, that makes sense, I'm going to go and do it now. And so that's the thing where it's like with millennials, it's giving them the flexibility to achieve the things that they want to do and empowering them to experiment and showcase their ability, because sometimes like there's still this hidden sort of information there. And with Peter, it was a great example where our onboarding today would not be where it is today without him. He was single-handedly managing and onboarding our first initial user base. Now this is a guy that had come fresh out of uni, right? Didn't know how to use email, didn't know any of these Microsoft Outlook features and stuff like that, right? But here he is automating a process. And that's what we're talking about. Like when you give them sort of like the ability to think and go, listen, just go and do and tell me how you do it, and then try it and let them fail and get them to kind of go, you know what, if I fall over, so it's okay, we can pick each other back up and go again. Amazing things happen. And I think that's the big thing, is making sure that you keep them engaged through giving them flexibility and empowerment.
It makes a lot of sense, because one of the things I heard this last week, some of the top tech companies in the US are actually bringing in kids between the ages of 5 and 8 years old to get them to play with, test and break their products. Yeah, and I think it's a brilliant concept, because basically they're saying, if you want to see what's possible, get a child to come in and pull everything apart. And what you're basically doing is just allowing that child at a later stage to come in, with the same sort of mindset, and basically take a totally different approach. And I always say there's 1,000 right ways to do things.
Yeah.
And your way is not necessarily the right way. It's like give people the outcome that you want, and let them work out their path, because it might actually blow your path out the water.
Well, it's the funny thing, right? Like you've got children that basically can help show you the future, right? Like I have a sister where, even through this process, I try to show her as much of the app and get her thoughts. She's in high school at the moment, and she tells me about the stuff that they're doing and how the kids are interacting. Now I'm learning off that, because I'm hearing how they're interacting. I'm like, all right, how do we make sure that we're engaging? Because that's the future, right? If we can build a business for now, or we can build a business that handles now but also grows to the future. And then on the flip side, it's not only just talking to millennials. I mean, in our case, it wasn't talking about millennials. It's kind of like you get the creativity and the beginner's mind, or like the hunger and the exploration, the lack of kind of sometimes when people go and do things multiple times, and they kind of start shutting off walls, and like, I've done that before, so I'm not going to do that again.
Well, we've tried that, and we tried that 10 years ago, and now it won't work.
Right. So you've got these young people that are just like, haven't tried anything, so they're like, well, why can't you try this, right? They're asking the why. And then pairing that to the other side, which is like, for example, which is the more mature people, and getting them to see whether what they've created is something that makes sense. So, to give you an example, a lot of our UX was tested on a 65-year-old Vietnamese retiree. So we wanted the simplicity where a 65-year-old could pick it up, use it, absolutely fine, but have the creativeness of what a child can think and do. So that's where you kind of like look at the two, because together they can teach you a lot. And being in the middle ground, all you have to do is just listen and be open and hear what they're saying, because one has so much wisdom and one has so much creativity. Put the two together, something's going to happen.
So, given this is all about future-proofing, I'm extremely passionate about giving people really simple hacks and tips that they can employ now to be able to kickstart, the process to be able to remain relevant in the future and be able to thrive. So, what would your advice be to someone who is worried about, or they're worried about being disrupted? And the reality is, I think, if every industry is up for disruption, so is every individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would someone, or where would someone even start, in your view, to...
You're talking about a business?
No, I'm talking about an individual. So someone, pretty much we're all going to have to reskill for the future. They say that this concept of education is out the window, and what it becomes is this concept of perpetual learning, where every 5 years you're going to have to relearn new skills. Yeah. So based on what you're saying, what sort of advice would you have for individuals who want to remain relevant in the future?
Yeah, it's funny. I was recently on a panel, and Jan Owen from Foundation, she said, and she said something that really resonated, which was like, they did all this testing, and they found that when they looked at, I think, I forgot the number of job ads out there, but every job ad, the one consistent commodity or task that was required was soft skills, right? Yet soft skills is the one thing that doesn't get taught in education, right? It's almost a passing remark, where as the student leaves and graduates and goes, oh, just remember, don't screw it up either. Just remember to talk and learn it. Like the soft skills is a passing remark. It's not a focus point. So I think the thing is, like, no one knows what the future is. Like, I can't sit here and go, the future is going to be this, right? We can assume, we can look at data, and we can kind of guess. But you really don't know. I mean, you look at UX, how big of a role that is now and what it was back then. So I think for people that are looking to, I just want to make sure it doesn't hit that. Yeah. I guess for people that are, looking to embrace themselves for that, is to start questioning and start thinking about what they're doing today, and what they're doing today, is that what they enjoy, right? Because when you start looking at that, you'll start to realize, like we hear a lot of people that go, oh, I'm just going to jump on the gig economy tomorrow. But if you don't know why you're doing that, or you can't pair it to why you're going to, what you love, then it can be a really boring job, or it can be a boring sort of situation. You might be in a role that you absolutely love, and that's amazing, right? But so there's two things, right? One is continue learning the soft skills. So, communicate with people as much as possible. I know it sounds simple, but the human eye-to-eye contact is something that is I hope, an art that doesn't get forgotten, right?
That is the one program I have been asked to develop the most in the last 3 months. Can you teach our people how to connect humanly?
Right.
Now, this is something that's innate, but we've lost it. Interesting.
It is, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, like, even if I go back to like my learnings over the past couple of years, one of the biggest things that's taught me or allowed me to do what I do today has been jiu-jitsu. And there was a period where because I have to step in every now and then and coach and help our coach instruct when he's away or whatever, it's taught me this ability to talk to a group or a room of people and teach something, right? And that's something, in the beginning I was super scared, but afterwards you get used to it and you learn, you're just communicating and how to communicate. So I think one is figure out how to communicate, because that's the one thing that is like...
Without a device?
Without a device, right? Like something that way you can sit down, what we're doing right now, having a conversation. That's something that has to remain, right? There are a whole bunch of short courses like Udemy, and like you've got all these, like even GA does these short courses. If you want to upskill in certain things for a short period, by all means, like those are great ways to look at upskilling. And the third part is then looking at your why. There's a Japanese term called ikigai.
Yeah. How's it pronounced? Sorry.
I just call it ikigai, but I don't know if that's right.
I heard it was a kagi, but it's funny because everyone I speak to pronounces it differently.
Right, maybe it's just like I've just got the bogan sort of.
No, mine's probably. I thought you might know, given your background.
No. I'll find out, but it's the sense of purpose, right? And until what's going to happen is basically with technology, it allows us to take us to this point where, more than ever right now, we get to explore our sense of purpose. If I look at my parents, they could never. They were focused on, we need to get a house, we need to make sure that we survive and we put food on the table, right? Now I'm in the generation where I've been grateful and to be able to have that, I'm now allowed to explore purpose. And only until I explore purpose can I then figure out what I'm going to do, which is why I'm here today, right? So I think with people, it's about going, explore your purpose, and once you know your purpose, then you can start to figure out, all right, for example, do I jump on something like WePloy and work for a period while I explore what I need to do? Do I jump on something like WePloy, earn money, but then go and do a course with yourself or GA or these sort of things? We have millennials right now that finish uni and jump on our platform to work, not to go make money, but so that they can experience the inside of the business.
Yeah.
You know,
Which is something that in the past has been really hard to get. Like how many people, young people you meet, and it's like, I want to go and work, but no one will give me a job because I don't have experience. Like, how do you get experience if you don't have experience?
Exactly, and that's where I think these gig economy, and it's not just us. You know, there's a lot of us out there in different areas where what we're able to do is put people in a real life experience and educate. You know, I was even speaking to a friend of mine who's just come over from overseas, and he's in a situation where he's like he wants to learn how to I guess communicate and adapt himself to the Australian culture as quick as possible. So I said to him, I go, why don't you just jump on Uber and just drive Uber for a while,
what a great
right?
idea.
Forget about the cash, but every day you're just talking to people, you're upskilling your English, and you're forced to have a communication point. And then it also teaches you about a little bit of business. And he's like, great idea. So he's doing that at the moment. But it's like, that's what I mean by how can we find why you're doing something, use the technology to help you get there, and don't see things as I'm just doing it just for the paycheck. There's always something more than that.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Sorry for blabbing on. I get really passionate about
It's
this.
insightful. Thank you very much. And all the best with WePloy.
Thank you very much.